Good morning, everyone. This is Brenda Perryman, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33 WHPR, Comcast 20, or Comcast 90, really, in Detroit and Oakland County. Also, if you want to call in, and you might want to call in today because we have some very exciting guests for you. And first and foremost, our first guest is someone who's running for Congress, Reverend Horace Sheffield. And our second guest is Vice President of the YMCA. Sorry, Letitia McCree, and she's telling us about a real exciting program. But first and foremost, I'm going to get to my two guests, Reverend Horace Sheffield. Good morning, Reverend Horace Sheffield, and then Richard Welch. I call him Ricky Welch. Richard Welch, and you're serving as what, Ricky, on the campaign? Talking?
I'm the chairman.
Okay.
I'm the campaign chairman.
The campaign chairman.
Yes.
And I'm so happy to have you on this morning because first and foremost, well, I've known you about 30-something years. We met when you were traveling with Tyler Shabazz and Yolanda King. Yes, and you came to Highland Park and everything, and I met Horace. We were a little less gray then, but and
a little bit more hair too,
and a little thinner then. But and you were a great actor.
Well, thank you. I mean, that brings back kind of mixed memories because, Yolanda's passed.
Yes.
In fact, she stopped here in Detroit on her way to talk with her brother in California. Had some trepidation about some of the issues going on with the family, and people don't know this. When she got to Dexter's door, she had a heart attack.
Oh my God!
They were fighting over the father's estate and over the King Center. And Yolanda's a very peaceful person. She just
very tranquil.
She hated conflict, and so I just want to honor her memory. And that place stepping into tomorrow, we were blessed to do at a sold-out house in Highland Park. I remember that was one of our best shows.
And do you know, since we're on civil rights, I'd like to send condolences to the family of Miss Ruby D. She passed away yesterday.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yes, and she and Ossie Davis, they were civil rights to the bone.
Yeah. They actually Ossie and Ruby were friends of my dad's and came and did a Dable dinner on 2 different occasions, and I was blessed to spend time with them in White Plains when I was in school in New York. When I went to New York, my dad had all of this network because he lived in Harlem. And so, Percy Sutton, all of these people. But they were very, very down to earth. As you know, were in that league of actors and actresses like Paul Robeson, who believe that they should use their genius not on stage, but to actually craft a new world. So,
well, along with fame comes responsibility.
Yes.
And they, in fact, Ossie gave the eulogy at Malcolm X's funeral.
Absolutely.
And one thing I want to say, this little quip about it before we get into your campaign, is the fact that Ossie always said that he and Ruby, they had the same continuous conversation. They could go do their jobs or whatever, and then they could pick up the conversation as they go on. He said, we've just always had one conversation going on.
And, I want to say one other thing because it's actually part of Dable's history, and we have it on several documents. When he came and spoke for the Dable dinner, he made this statement: "It's not to rap, it's to map. It's not to man, it's to plan."
All right.
Yes.
So let's give our sympathy to the family, but a legacy was left behind.
Absolutely.
At 1 week we have Maya Angelou, and now we have Ruby
and
D.
Don Davis.
And Don Davis. How could I forget about Don Davis? I think his funeral's next Friday.
And he mentions Ernie Rogers, who was Jimmy Wilkins' orchestra. He was my 7th grade homeroom teacher. I actually played stand-up bass next to Michael Henderson in Ernie Rogers' class. And Ernie was on my radio show just a few months ago.
Yes.
And we really miss Ernie. Just a wonderful guy.
And I was privileged to be asked to write a poem about him. And Al McKenzie was his student, James Carter, I think. Just so many. So, Horace Sheffield, what made you decide to run for Congress?
Well, there's so much going on in Detroit and in the 13th district, and there's been a really almost a muted silence of the voice of the current congressperson in terms of weighing in. Look, seniors are losing their landlines. Seniors are not technologically savvy. They don't know how to text. Many of them.
Why are they losing their landline?
Because the state of Michigan has passed the bill, and it's happening across the country where basically within another year all landlines will be phased out. Seniors have objected to this. I mean, there's a host of issues. Inkster, the public schools were dissolved. Their buildings are presently being sold to other districts. Taxpayers' money went into those buildings, but other municipalities are going to benefit. So I just felt that we needed aggressive, bold leadership, the kind of thing I've done all my life. My dad taught me at a very early age to stand up for myself, and that it was more valiant and honorable to stand up for others. So I just think we need, someone who's going to fight for the working poor, for working class people, and I'm the guy to do that.
Okay, so what makes you different? You already mentioned some things, but Congressman Conyers has been around quite a while in all of this, and a lot of people are very loyal to that.
Yeah.
How can you change their mind?
Well, first of all, I think you have to go beyond the mystique. I mean, there's a humongous mystique that's associated with the congressman, and people are valiantly fighting for him. But let's bring back history. In fact, Adam Clayton Powell will be here on the 29th of June for me to do a fundraiser. When his father was in Congress, the current congressperson was actually involved in getting him put out of Congress. Elsie
Wrangle?
Hastings. No. Adam Clayton Powell.
I remember.
Was actually, his departure was facilitated by the person that we want to rally, people want to rally behind. I'm just simply saying, I'm not bringing up dirt. The reality is people want to laud and honor someone, but what has happened in these last 25 years, senior person told me there's basically two things that they associate the current congressman with. One is the King Birthday Bill, which actually a woman out of Gary, Indiana, wrote the bill and got the bill passed. He introduced it, but he never passed it. And the other is making jazz a national language. I'm saying that there are people who are hurting. There are people who are unable to, fend for themselves. Look at this pension fight. 5% reduction, taxing the pension, and now we find out that the people who did the formulations were wrong, and people are going to be paying this money back even after their death.
Oh,
but where is a voice in that?
Where is the voice?
Right.
Where is the voice? Well, you say one of your first priorities is job creation.
No question. Well, we have what I call a FDR. FDR, people associated Roosevelt with the New Deal, and I propose what I call the Federal Domestic Relief Act of 2015. I'm going to introduce it. And basically what it'll do is take a comparable parallel amount of money that we presently spend on foreign domestic aid. We spend only 1%. People think we spend all kind of money, but we only spend 1%, about $150 billion that we spend giving money to other countries. We give Israel $750 million. We give Nigeria $600 million. And it goes on and on and on. Can you imagine?
Nigeria, that's a rich country.
Well, let me just
really.
tell you something. We give money to countries that we know use that money for weapons. They use that money that goes to the oligarchy or the rich who are in control, never feed their own people. But yet when it comes to the American people, we tell them, well, you're on your own, do your best, even though the financial crisis that's been created, the government participated in, corporations benefited from. Why can't the American people have some relief as well?
Absolutely. And Richard, why are you behind this man?
Well, I'm going to interject something right here. Most people, because of the loyalty they've expressed for Mr. Conyers, which myself, I've always voted for him, always been loyal to him. But see, right now, a vote for Horace Sheffield is not a vote against John Conyers. It's a vote for your own future. I look at what's been done and what needs to be done in the future. And I look at the dynamics that are in Washington right now, and we know, let's face it, Obama's going to move on. We need a real voice. We need someone that we can look back and won't say, well, what has he done in the last 20 years? And I'm not dogging John. I love John. But it's just like in basketball. I love Michael Jordan. I love Magic. But guess what? It came a time when the time was right that they had to move on. I feel it's that time right now, and we need a replacement, and I think this is the man.
Okay, so Horace, you say we don't get our fair share of federal funding anyway.
No, we don't.
And why is that?
Well, because that's something you had to be focused on. I mean, I think, to the credit of the congressman, he's been a valiant fighter for civil rights. He's lent his voice to issues of things that have happened that are unjust. But at the same time, while we're fighting for global, recognition and for things to happen on a national level, it really starts with that local homeowner who has to put a blue tarp on his roof.
Well,
Who can't afford to replace a roof.
Right.
I was with a guy last night, had to move out of his house, who had 35 years with the city. His pension's been readjusted, they're taxing his pension, and he couldn't afford to put a roof on his house. Why can't we help them? We helped General Motors retool, refuel, and they went bankrupt, left minority contractors holding the buck. Why can't we spend money on us?
That's right. Okay, Greg is on the line. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, Ms. Perryman. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
I was wondering, Ms. Perryman, you're familiar with the area of Davison and Roseland Cordes Elementary School, aren't you?
Well, Davison, yeah.
Roseland, remember the Cordes Elementary School?
Yeah.
Well, right now, that's an abandoned building.
It's not
I
abandoned.
thought Horace at Sheffield owned the building, but now it's an abandoned building.
I don't own the building, and I'm glad you asked the question because we have so many people who are masters of misinformation. That building was leased by the Detroit Association of Black Organizations. It was subleased by a charter school who basically abandoned the building, never paid any rent, and left those utility bills. The bottom line is right now Dable's responsible for the bill. We're negotiating. In fact, I've got a meeting at 11 o'clock today with the law department. I hope people are equally upset that there are over 70 other folks who owe the city of Detroit money, including Detroit Public Schools, which owes almost $50 million. And by the way, have not had their lights shut off. DMC owes money. It goes on and on and on. We're going to pursue whatever legal remedies we have. The building has not been abandoned. In fact, organizations, black sororities, fraternities, and other people have been using that building up till the day that the lights went off, and we're figuring out right now whether or not we're going to put it back.
Who is in charge of the upkeep of the building now? Because it looks a shame. The grass is all over the place.
Sir, please don't call here with misinformation. I just spent $550.
I live across the street from the building.
Okay, you know what? How about you meet me
there?
there?
It's an abandoned school with grass growing everywhere.
That's just not true.
One at a time. Well,
but that's just not true.
Who's responsible for the grass?
We have that grass cut every week, and that's just an outright lie. And that building is not abandoned. In fact, we put over $200,000 in the building. And if this gentleman has a problem, then he should have had a problem when it was boarded up, because the building was boarded up, and we went in there and took the building over and fixed that building, painted that building, put heating and cooling in that building, and that's just an outright untruth. So, look, if you got an issue with me, just talk to me about me. Don't try to dig up dirt, because quite frankly, the pile that you're digging from probably is your own.
Thank you, Greg. Now,
and by the way, can I say something about that? I was at a Buena Vista Block Club meeting the other day, and two other folks were running for state representative, and one of the persons made some rather scurrilous comments about the Jewish community, and the other person made some scurrilous comments about the other person they were running against, and this was the day that this story broke about the electric bill. And by the way, Richard would tell you, I mean, I've given my last dime. We're in this situation because we educated a population that no one else wanted to, who, by the way, had higher MEEP scores than kids in Detroit public schools or their own alternative schools. And I said, when are we going to get to the point where we as a people stop doing this to one another? If we look at anybody's personal portfolio, good people have bad things happen to them, and they're not always necessarily by choice. People start out doing right or trying to do good, and things happen. I mean, that's the situation here. And I ask anybody who wants to go look at that building. We just paid for the grass being done even yesterday.
Okay, we have a call from Larry. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Perryman, and to yourself. Greetings to you and also
Thank
to
you.
your guests.
You too.
Mr. Sheffield,
Yes,
let me
sir.
just say this for the start. Hopefully I'll be quick and putting this out. Mr. Sheffield, I do believe that we definitely need a breath of fresh air in that particular position that is being currently held by John Conyers. With that said, sir, I do believe there is a right way and a wrong way to do any and everything. I do believe, sir, that you have a lot to offer, and I do believe that Mr. Conyers, in all of the years that he's held that position, I do believe this, that they need to train someone else that has to fight the wheel, the drive, in order to fulfill that job to make sure that the residents' constituency is being properly taken care of. So I do believe, sir, that
Larry,
you may be that person to do that.
Okay, but Larry, but let me just say a couple of things, and I really appreciate what you're saying. First of all, one of the things that motivate me to run, and I prayed about this for a long time, is that the current congressman has no intention to never not run. In fact, if you look at the article when he was put back on the ballot, and we still have no opinion from the Supreme Court as to whether or not the collection of petitions is invalid, he was simply put back on the ballot. He said when Rochelle Riley asked him, will this be your last term? He said, no, I don't ever intend not to run. And you're absolutely right. My dad, by the way, who died at nearly 80 years of age, did have a plethora of people. I mean, if Richard Welch, I could name people that my dad mentored and brought along in the process. And it's not personal ownership. I mean, we're suffering too much. We've lost most of our African American leadership in the city of Detroit, and who do we have?
Mr. Sheffield, let me say this too, and to get off the phone to allow someone else to call. Mr. Sheffield, clearly, we have a problem with the electoral process here in the city of Detroit when it comes to our ability or our knowledge about putting individuals into that particular office. We have a broken political system here in the city of Detroit. Mr. Sheffield, if you're not successful with your bid to run for Congress, if you're not, what about helping us get our broken electoral system fixed? And thank you all for taking my call.
Thank you, Larry.
And, I've been involved in that process. My eyes were open wide a few years ago. My daughter ran, and I realized the number of spoiled ballots, how in recount situations, because ballots are spoiled or canisters or seals are broken, I think they've gone a long way toward clearing that up. Last election, the mayor's race, for the first time, Brenda, they actually allowed observers to go to the transfer stations where it was widely believed most of that happened. So where the votes were taken from the precincts to the place they're taken to before they go downtown,
Right.
those places were inspected. They had federal people here, they had state people here, and I think if we're going to get people motivated to vote, we've got to have them believe that there's no mess in the game.
Right, right, absolutely. We have another call. DJ 8 Mile is on the line. Good morning.
How you doing today, Miss Perryman?
And just fine, thanks.
How you doing, Mr. Sheffield, and your other guests?
What's
I
going
give
on,
a shout out to TV33,
DJ
RJ
8
Watkins,
Mile?
all the other hosts, and TV33, and Channel 90, Channel 20 family. My comment is, first, Mr. Sheffield, I've known for you to be in and out of the city of Detroit politics for the last, I'll say since the 90s, since I've heard of your name. So I can positively say that you have been a person through the political system that have tried to represent the generational resident of Detroit. And when I say the generational resident, I mean a person that either raised kids here, grew up here, or lived in our community for over 20 years.
And what's that term
Now,
again?
one of the comments or the question I like to ask is, there seems to be a disconnection between 21 and under and the 35 and older in the city of Detroit. And since I know that you are currently running for election, I would like to know, me being in the hip-hop industry, we all have this issue about throwing parties with 18 and under. I would like to know, could you throw a rally designed for the 18 and under of not just school age, but just the general population?
Sure. And I want you to stay on the line because I think you've hit on a chord that is resounded throughout my campaign, and that is, I'll frame it in this term, who's Detroit? By the way, I'm going to give you out a phone number, and absolutely, yes, I will sponsor that. Call me at 859
859?
Yeah, 859-9489. 313-859.
9489.
Yeah. And by the way, when it comes to youth, my daughter's 25 years of age. We fought like hell to get her on that council. I got no organized support from anybody. All the businesses downtown, down Gilbert, you name them, the Chamber of Commerce, Dennis, Archer, they all, even Black Elite arrayed themselves against my daughter, even though my father helped Dennis Archer get elected. Here's where I'm at. We've got this huge divide, Brenda, in our town between people who, he called them generational Detroiters, who never left this town, who have paid inordinate taxes, who have struggled through low police response time. I mean, just no city services. And now you've got all these other folks coming back to Midtown, Boston, Edison, getting money to move back into the town, getting their taxes abated, and having concentrated police response. And I'm standing up for everyday Detroiters who never left this
town. You understand what you're termed by the generational resident.
Generational residents. That's what I'm going to use that from now on. For
okay,
generation.
That's the sweat equity that's not being
and by the way, my grandfather came in 1919. 1919, had a house on Hazelet. He bought in 1921, and we sold it in 1992. It was just torn down 2 weeks ago. If you look at my Facebook page, I bemoan the fact that this house, where great leaders that came to visit my dad, is gone. So yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'm concerned about those of us who never left this city, never got off the boat, kept it afloat, and now we got other folks, who want to dock our boat and bring theirs to shore.
Shout that number out again for me.
313-859. Yep, 859.
859.
9489.
9489.
You call me.
We'll 859-9489.
Yeah, and we'll have it right. We'll have it right over there in front of my neighbor's house on Roseland and Cordes, where the grass is cut. By the way, the guy that failed you to mention that I had horses out there. I had all kind of stuff last summer, free food, horseback rides, clowns, and paid for every bit of that. And so whatever this guy sees, I'm not certain what block he lives on. Maybe he lives on the block where the abandoned field is and the abandoned factory is and all those other things that, by the way, someone owns and pays taxes on but never cuts the grass.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Another thing is infrastructure.
Yeah.
It just seems like people should have fought for the federal level or whatever, and the state, of course, because these roads are so bad. I just got a nail in my tire.
Yeah. Well, that's what I call 1+1, this FDI, Federal Domestic Relief Bill. And that 1% of the total federal budget, as we spend 1% on foreign affairs, would go to stuff like that. Now, right now in Lansing, they're fighting over whether or not they're going to spend $100 million or whatever. I mean, whatever it costs to get these roads right. Look, Brenda, you know for a fact on your way here, the state's not even cutting the freeways.
I know. We have Tyrone on the line. Good morning.
Good morning to you all. Yes, I want to ask you a question up to the panel. From Mac on the 75 freeway, from Mac all the way to Jefferson, what they planning on building? A new city? I just want to get your opinion on that.
Well, not only that, my friend, but Tyrone, I've actually seen the plans for what they're going to do with 75. Have you seen them, Brenda?
No. Yeah, I saw them they were in the paper. They had like 4 different plans.
They have different plans, but basically, now that was the Black Bottom. That was Hastings Street. That was Gostam Hotel. That's where our bloodline of black economic life was. They came through that. Mayor Cobo raised that land, let it sit for years. He had some imminent plan where he was going to redevelop it, but basically it moved 116,000 African Americans out of a neighborhood that we owned, where our businesses flourished, and it sat fallow for years. Then they finally bring 75 through there, and now that other people are coming back, other people are investing. There's a great book out. You ought to get it. 2 books. One is called Detroit City Race and Class Violence. My dad did the forwarding. It's by B.J. Whittick. The other book is just called Who's, W-H-O-S-E, Detroit. And Richard tell you, everywhere I go, I have this conversation. Other people are sitting in rooms without us deciding whose Detroit this is going to be.
Right.
And this is where a congressperson who represents Detroit has to stand up and say there are people here who are generational residents who need to be a part of that equation. Other than that, it's a skewed kurtosis, and if the input's not right, the output won't be either.
That's absolutely right.
And I must say, by the way, we're not against development. No. We're not against other people moving back. We're not against Detroit flourishing and prospering and being better. We all want that. We travel all over this country and go to communities. Harlem, look at Harlem. I got a church in Brooklyn. They have Red Lobsters in Harlem. They have all of this in this black community,
right.
But it's still owned by Abyssinian Baptist Church, Adam Clayton Powell's church. He owns the majority of the land in Harlem. You know, we should own the land, they should lease our land, and we should benefit from whatever economic opportunities that they want to engage in our town.
Well, if you were in Congress, what could you do about the infrastructure?
Well, again, the Federal Domestic Relief Act, 1% of the total federal budget, over and above all present entitlements, all other monies that are given to the states and local government, would bring almost $3 billion additional dollars to the state of Michigan. That $3 billion ought to go to the neighborhoods and communities that are most economically depressed. You know, we've got money that came in here before. When Obama's money came in here, the state did all kind of stuff with that. Money didn't necessarily get down to homeowners. You know, I like to help Stella get her groove back, but every time I drive, I fly in the metro, and I see all these blue tarps. I'm confused if I'm in Nassau or Detroit. People who've owned homes for 40 years can't afford to put a roof on their homes, and they're still paying high taxes for houses that aren't worth what they're assessed at. I mean, let's do something.
But then I know people who have gone downtown to the county building to try to figure out these assessments and stuff, and they can't get any relief.
Well, here's the problem. The city and all these municipalities are struggling because the Headley Act caps how much you can raise your taxes. So they've been reluctant to change the appraisal and the assessments, because if they assess the property for what it's really worth in the market, they would lose a tremendous amount of tax money. So what they're doing, they're letting taxpayers come down and argue before tax tribunals that this is not what my house is really worth. They're not just arbitrarily saying, okay, the house is only worth this. There's been some relief, but not along the lines of what it should be. Now, here's the real issue. Next year, the legislature, the governor's already indicated that they're going to review how we do property tax. I'm concerned about that because the inklings that I've heard, and I have a lot of friends in Lansing, is that what they intend to do is to be able to facilitate this poor clearance, or they call it planned shrinkage, but it's really poor clearance, because the future city plans where Dabo is, all that becomes a park with a pond. But what they intend to do is figure how they can raise tax assessments in the areas where people, for example, have nice homes but they're retired. Couple that with their pensions being diminished, they can't afford to live there no more.
They won't be able to afford to live there. And can you tell me where to let people know how they could join your campaign, or where they can contribute?
Well, the first thing they can do is pray for me, because we have a problem in Detroit. We love to hate people, and that, by the way, doesn't bother me at all, because I lived in the house with my dad, who gave his life for others, and I saw him being vilified on occasion. So that comes with the territory. In fact, my mother said the only time you experience friction is if you're moving. If you ain't going nowhere, ain't no friction. So I don't worry about that. You can't call me out. You can't shout me down. You can't ruin my reputation. People who know me, and I've done an awful lot for a whole lot of people. I've fed the hungry. I've put people back in their homes. I've gone to court. I've stood up for injustice. So they can call 313-491-0222, 313-491-0222, and our website is simply Better with Sheffield. Better with Sheffield. Our theme is we can do better.
Right.
Jerry Oliver, who they ran out of this town, something he said to me I never forgot. He said, Reverend Sheffield, people in Detroit act like this is normal. Mm-hmm. This is not normal.
Right. Well,
we can do better.
A lot of times people let an uncomfortable situation become their comfort zone.
Yes.
And that's unfortunate. Are you speaking anywhere soon?
I'm speaking now with Richard tonight at Mo Better Blues.
Independent Business Association will be there tonight.
Yeah, and I've got a bunch of meet and greets that are scheduled. They call my office. We'll let them know about them. We're feeding people, precinct delegates, community activists. Come in and I go through my whole plan and talk with you about what I want to do.
Could you quickly let people know where your district is?
Well, the district is and it's really amazing when you look at how the districts were gerrymandered. It's like over the river and through the snow for the 14th. And we should have 2 solidly African American districts, but we don't. And one other thing when I'm educating is that because the American population has grown, congressional districts have gone from 400,000 to 700,000, and the prediction is in 10 years they'll go to 2 million per person.
my God.
So they're talking about adding 50 new congressional districts. But I am the west side of Detroit, basically from Livernois over to the end of the city, from Finkel south, all of the downriver areas, Melvindale, Dearborn Heights, Ecorse, River Rouge, Westland, all of those communities down there.
Well, good
Garden
luck.
City.
The primary is August 5th.
Yes.
You got to get people out to vote.
We're knocking on doors. We're doing everything we can. And all powers to be ordained of God. I'll say it here on your show. I've never said this anywhere else. And that is, whoever God wants to be, I'm really convinced that the Lord is mindful of the poor. He's always concerned about those who need compassion. And our city's in need of help. And I believe the problem we have is we put people who have a different agenda other than the masses of people in the public office, and then wonder why we get no relief or rescue because they're busy taking care of themselves and their friends.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, you've heard it from Reverend Sheffield himself, from the horse's mouth, and and Richard Welch. And we'll be back in just a moment. Thank you guys for coming. We'll be back with Letitia McCree in just a moment.